Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that the Youth Parliament should not prioritise a curriculum to prepare us for life. My fellow youth MPs, it is our duty to represent the young people of this great country. We strive to raise the morale of every young individual who is a part of the future generation, our generation. But in doing this, we must not lose focus on how important it is to create the leaders and innovators of tomorrow. As helpful as a curriculum to prepare us for life may be to those that intend to use every part of it to their advantage, we cannot forget about the vast majority that, despite wanting to learn more about politics, economics, and the other things that a curriculum for life would cover, the reality is, for a lot of young people, whether they realise it now or not, this dream of theirs could quickly become overwhelming. A lot of young people already consider the education system flawed, and adding more to our already overwhelming curriculum could further enhance the educational instability Britain faces, further giving the future generation, our generation, a false identity of education, resulting in the weakening of our attempts to create the leaders and innovators of tomorrow. We must also consider the fact there is limited space in the curriculum. If we add more content to the already overwhelming curriculum, we could risk losing subjects such as drama, music, and art. These subjects are often referred to as less valuable. However, what some of us may be able to realise is that these less valuable subjects are actually the ones that make us feel the most, we enjoy the most and feel the most relaxed at school. My fellow youth MPs, if we lose these subjects, a child could also be losing their dream. And if that is the case, then I want no part in having to tell a child that they can no longer accomplish that dream. We're trying so hard to fight the increase in mental health that if we take away these subjects, we could be backfiring our efforts to create a better tomorrow. There is so much madness in this world. There are cities that need to be built, and there's a world to be helped. So I strongly believe that it would be more beneficial if the Youth Parliament focused its efforts on mental health and modern day crisis, such as protecting the environment, as we only have one planet and one chance to save the 7.5 billion people that inhabit it. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it was written, "The kingdom of God is within man, not one man, not a group of men, but in all human beings. Therefore, we, the future generation, have the power. So let the goodness we do today define the very nature of tomorrow, and join me in voting for a different issue that will truly make a difference." Thank you.
I'm Henry Dean, NYP for the Isles of Scilly. Coming from the Isles of Scilly, me and my peers have been blessed with a great education, but it's not perfect, especially for curriculum. And I'm sure many of the young people from across the country would agree with me. We are not taught core skills in our curriculum. Finance is a huge gap. Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, said, "As a nation, we've educated our youth into debt, but never about debt. Debt, and money in general, can lead to mental health problems, addiction, and violence, maybe including knife crime." Voting for this motion is like a 3-for-1 offer. No, 4-for-1 or more if we take in the wider picture of a good education. We live in a buy now, pay later culture, when it was this, and still is, the philosophy that's contributed hugely to our global environmental problems. So let's not ignore the importance of a good education and vote for our generation to have the best possible future.
My name is Victor Chunka and the NYP for Cardiff, Wales. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, curriculum to prepare us for life has been voted constantly by young people of the UK, and it has been on the Make Your Mark ballot for 6 years, during the years of 2012 and 2017. It is also found this year with 139,344 votes. A curriculum to prepare us for life. is one of the main issues of young people because young people need to be prepared for life, but educated and have the greatest general culture with them. Focusing on skills in isolation can kill interests in any discipline. Many have been put off by mathematics for life, by endless tasks that did nothing to inspire them. Many have spent years grudgingly practicing for music examinations, only to abandon the instrument altogether once they've made the grade. The real driver of creativity is an appetite for discovery and a passion for the work itself. We want schools and their partners to inspire us and help us make our dreams come true. To do this, we have to overcome a lot and bounce back. Learning, questioning, and research are vital elements of progression. But how does education help one to prepare us for failure? We need to be taught to take risks and that it is okay to fail sometimes. As Winston Churchill once said, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. We can learn from mistakes more than successes, and we can react to them if we are taught how. Many young people ponder every day and reach these inevitable questions. What is your life plan? What if you wake up tomorrow and have no job? We need to be supported, prepared, and not to be depressed, and to know what we have to do. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but that was too long ago. We need to be able to learn and to be able to create our own Rome, because we are tomorrow's future. As the MYPs, the leading voice of young people's rights in this country, it is not just our responsibility, but once again, it is our duty to vote for a curriculum to prepare us for life. Thank you very much. We need to be taught to take risks and that it is okay to fail sometimes. The real driver of creativity is an appetite for discovery and a passion for the work itself.
I think it's time that we step away from a focus on grades and step towards producing citizens fit for society. This won't only prepare us for life, but will step us away from the mental health issues raised in other motions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
When delivered in partnership with communities, parents and pupils, a curriculum for life can contribute to positive outcomes for children and young people, keeping them healthy and safe, improving their academic performance, preparing them for the workplace, building the character and resilience they will need for the modern and changing world. Elevating the status of a PSHE education will not only persuade schools in the whole education system that subjects should be at the core of learning, it also sends a message to parents that their queries about child safety are finally being heard. The stakes in terms of school performance in academic subjects have never been higher, and if this is not balanced by raised expectations for PSHE education, standards of education will continue to be unacceptably low in preparing us for the modern world. How many of you have sat in a citizenship lesson and wondered, how do I file my taxes? How do I get a mortgage? You've just sat through the constant dreary CEOP online safety lessons, which you have been taught multiple times all the way from year 6. Support for a curriculum for life would be a catalyst for positive change. Head teachers and schools and others would have to respond. The support from these groups demonstrates that the education system stands ready to respond from leadership from government. The campaign for a curriculum for life is endorsed by pupils, parents and teachers across the country. Teachers and parents are calling for a collaboration between home and school to support pupils' personal and social development. Fellow Youth Parliament members, it's time to make this a priority again. I don't like saying this, but our education is in our hands. If the decision makers can't make an education that suits us, then it's time for us to make an education that suits us. Our voices must be heard. Thank you.
There is no doubt that the lessons young people are taught are outdated and unhelpful. We're expected to learn things that we would never put to practical use, wasting valuable learning time. Whilst previously proposed subjects in this matter, such as taxation and finances, are important for our education, what happens to the subjects that are left behind? Events in history that are overlooked also provide valuable life lessons, looking at how we tackle hate crime to ensure that these often catastrophic events do not occur again. Reforming our education would allow students to gain perspective of not just academia, but of valuable life lessons based on both life as an adult, but of the steps taken to achieve social justice throughout history. Thank you.
My name is Victor Chunka and NYP for Cardiff, Wales. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, curriculum to prepare us for life has been voted constantly by young people of the UK, and it has been on the Make Your Mark ballot for 6 years during the years of 2012 and 2017. It is also found this year with 139,344 votes. A curriculum to prepare us for life is one of the main issues of young people, because young people need to be prepared for life, but educated and have the greatest general culture with them. Focusing on skills in isolation can kill interests in any discipline. Many have been put off by mathematics for life, by endless tasks that did nothing to inspire them. Many have spent years grudgingly practicing for music examinations, only to abandon the instrument altogether once they've made the grade. The real driver of creativity is an appetite for discovery and a passion for the work itself. We want schools and their partners to inspire us and help us make our dreams come true. To do this, we have to overcome a lot and bounce back. Learning, questioning and research are vital elements of progression. But how does education help one to prepare us for failure? We need to be taught to take risks and that it is okay to fail sometimes. As Winston Churchill once said, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. We can learn from mistakes more than successes, and we can react to them if we are taught how. Many young people ponder every day and reach these inevitable questions. What is your life plan? What if you wake up tomorrow and have no job? We need to be supported, prepared, and not to be depressed, and to know what we have to do. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but that was too long ago. We need to be able to learn and to be able to create our own Rome, because we are tomorrow's future. As the NYPs, the leading voice of young people's rights in this country, it is not just our responsibility, but once again, it is our duty to vote for a curriculum to prepare us for life. Thank you very much.
A Curriculum for Life has been the joint most popular campaign over the years. So, is it the most important? September this year marked the beginning of sex and relationship education becoming compulsory in schools, and so did the requirement for qualified teachers and a new way of teaching. A tremendous step towards our goal, but we've yet to see the same treatment with other aspects of this motion. You have changed the law to improve the lives of so many young people. An incredible incentive as to why we should keep campaigning until our students achieve an education they deserve. Financial management, cultural awareness, social cohesion, physical and mental health, citizenship, a sustainable living, and even our own political system are not being taught in schools. The most crucial time in our lives, we are preparing for our future but not actually learning about real life. Yet, what's the reality of this motion? Learning about finance on a Friday afternoon will not be the most riveting lesson, meaning students may still manage to disengage from it. But at least comments like, how is this going to help us in real life, will cease to have relevance, as these skills will equip us to be able, functioning members of society, despite the rest of the school system letting us down. However, we don't want to amplify our already overwhelmed system, creating educational instability and rebounding our efforts to improve our education. If resources are redirected towards a curriculum for life, we could see a cut in the less important creative subjects. These lessons are a break in the monotonous chain where students are allowed to be innovative. Another vital skill that schools almost sought out to destroy with their industrial age values. We are not robots in a factory. Without a creative outlet, I'm sure mental health issues will follow. But a curriculum for life far transgresses the individual. It's the solution to many more staggering issues. I'm not going to scare you with the plotline of most sci-fi movies, but with automation on the rise, it's a problem that shouldn't be left for our future generations to handle, just like the issue of climate change has been thrown onto us, which is also why we should be teaching the brilliant youth about a sustainable living. A collective effort to change has and will always be the driving force to action. Envision a future where the threat of global warming will feel like a distant nightmare. A future where the study of culture and social cohesion will destroy the concept of division and unite us as a community. A future where the barrier to politics has been torn down by a political understanding. Nonetheless, we need to make sure that this motion doesn't create a barrier to many young people's dreams. The concept of equal opportunity needs to be reinstalled without pushing our system over the edge. Though we can't deny what our youth parliament stands for, to encourage the voices of young people. So when students have lost even the ability to stand up for themselves and others, essentially because they can't conjure a rational debate, we need to make a change. A curriculum to prepare us for life. It's all in the name. To secure our future and the future of this country. Thank you.
It is a privilege to speak to you all today, in the very same house that Joe Cox stood just over 3 years ago. Joe was cruelly taken away from us by a crime grown from hate and ignorance of, and a lack of respect for, our fundamental values, by bitterness, intolerance and prejudice, based on no reason or experience. We must ask ourselves whether we are prepared to oppose such extreme ideologies, to confront the rhetoric that fuels them, and to tackle hate crime. And I hope the answer is yes. Having any crime committed against you is an ordeal, but imagine being specifically targeted because of your perceived identity. Our identity is what makes us who we are, what shapes our beliefs, passions, and dreams. Imagine living in a constant state of fear, scared to wear your religious dress in public, scared to hold your partner's hand, scared to use your wheelchair on public transport, scared to run alone at night, or fearful that you will be victimised because of the colour of your skin. Sadly, this is a reality for too many young people today. The number of hate crimes reported have more than doubled since 2013, with more than 14,000 reported in the direct aftermath of the EU referendum. Tackling hate crime has made it to our House of Commons debate for the first time. Our young people are telling us that something has changed in their lives, and they need our support and solidarity, which we can offer in a UK-wide campaign. Divisive rhetoric from our politicians cannot be excused from the hostility they create, which trickles down into abuse on our streets. It is no coincidence that in the week following Boris Johnson's Telegraph column labelling veiled Muslim women as bank robbers and letterboxes, a 375% increase in Islamophobic incidents was reported. We have a responsibility to call out harmful language when we hear it, because this is the true way we can tackle hate crime. As Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Love can do that. So I urge you to show that love and light today in supporting victims as youth MPs. Hatred is an emotive word, often associated with feelings of anger and disgust. So how can we stand by while this is applied to our fellow human beings? I believe, above all else, humanity is a force of good, a force of kindness and strength. So today, let us show that young people are not prepared to accept hate in our country by voting for this motion, because, friends, we have far more in common than that which divides us.
Many people in the UK will remember when homosexuality was illegal. Gay citizens were labelled insane by doctors, predatory by broadcasters, and criminal by the police. As we look back at the Stonewall riots on its 50th anniversary, at a time when gay activists risked their lives in campaigning for equality, at a time of lethal hostility, it is clear that hate crime, whilst reduced since then, has not disappeared. In the year of campaigning preceding the 2016 EU referendum, Home Office figures show an enormous jump in racially motivated hate crimes of 44%. Across the globe, we have seen deepening social divisions, with vitriolic hatred spat at those who think differently, sound differently, and look differently to ourselves. A dangerous us versus them mentality has been fostered, whipping up anger, violence, and even murder. Fellow members of Youth Parliament, it is all too clear that hate crime is an abhorrent issue that we must abolish. However, we must consider how best this is to be done. There is no doubt that without a greater focus on a holistic education system, the problems in our society will never change. Our current education system idolises grades and academia, snubbing lessons in life to focus instead solely on oxidation, octagons and onomatopoeia. We must question what we should be preparing young people in schools for, a set of arbitrary exams or life. Education should not simply be about cramming our minds with facts and formulas. Our current education system must be reformed so that students no longer leave school with solely a results card, but also having been thoroughly prepared for adult life. In relation to hate crime, this will involve the education system opening our eyes to countries and cultures across the world. Multiculturalism and diversity must be celebrated so that the perspectives of young people are widened from the street in which they live to the entire globe. To truly uproot hate crime, we must use education to break the social divisions in our society, remembering that whatever our race or religion, we all bleed the same blood. If we do not reform our education system, the perpetuation of prejudice and ignorance will only cause the rifts in our society to widen. Fellow members of Youth Parliament, it is all too clear that instead of spreading ourselves thinly over many issues and achieving little, we must stand together to achieve more. Reforming our current education system will not only tackle hate crime, but will in fact energise every other campaign, because every campaign has its roots in education. From increased political education for votes at 16s, to more environmental education to tackle climate change. If the Youth Parliament unites behind reforming our current education system, the campaigns will completely change and take on a new form. So the choice isn't hard. If we focus on reforming our education system, every campaign, and therefore every young person, will win. However, education about hate crime will only succeed if our politicians support this. And I fear that the people who need the education most is them. I think it's necessary to reiterate the huge jump in abuse incidents caused by Boris Johnson's comments, showing the impact of language on the real world. Because after the murder of the MP Joe Cox, we are now reverting back to a political discourse that is poisoned with hostility, animosity, and brutality. With anti-Semitism and Islamophobia rampant in our two main political parties, it is clear that politicians must not normalise and champion the language of division and death because it has real-world consequences. Our politicians should be saving lives, not endangering them. I plead with our MPs to stop this farce. Both our Parliament and the Youth Parliament must focus on fighting for society, not against it. A vote for tackling hate crime today means nothing without real action. I urge all members of Youth Parliament to focus on reforming our education system, to create a society that is not split into tribal factions, but that allows everyone to coexist together. However you define yourself, male, female, black, white, Christian, Muslim, gay, straight, we are all human, and we must never allow prejudice to get in the way of us moving forward. We must stand together to create a better world. Thank you.
First of all, I want everyone to look around the room today. You will not find one person who is the same as you. We are all individuals of different sexes, races, sexual orientations. We are an example of the best of what this country can be. A group of people who come together despite our differences. despite what people with prejudices may put against us. As the speaker said earlier today, we are the future, and by supporting this motion or supporting the education motion, we are proving that we can all come together, and that's what this motion is about. This motion is about people, and that's what we're here to represent, the people. And so I urge you all to take this seriously and think, what am I going to do to make sure we can all live together and not apart?
Mr. Speaker, members of the Youth Parliament, I would like to share a story with you. This story is about the intolerance, the hate, the fear in our society. This story is about a girl from my constituency. This story is about a girl who lives in a safe and welcoming neighbourhood. This is a story of a girl whose grandfather fought for the British in the Second World War. This is a story of a girl whose father was asked where he had hidden his boat, whose mother had to change her name because she feared being discriminated against. This is a story about a girl that is victim to hearing rumours, derogatory comments, curses every single day, simply brushing them off. This story is about a girl, members of the Youth Parliament, who has time and time again been a victim of having eggs pelted at her home. This is a story of a girl who has tomatoes bowled and lobbed at her house. Where her family and siblings are just trying to spend quality time together. This is a story of rocks and boulders being hurled and heaved mercilessly, smashing all the windows, all the ideas and all the visions of that girl. This is a story, members of the Youth Parliament, about a girl who wants to see the world as her oyster, yet cannot step outside her front door because she's scared of what she might encompass, of what she might face. This girl is confident, yet shattered when her windows, her car and her mind are broken with the boulders of hate, insult and insolence. This girl feels as if all these stones are supposed to strike her down, are supposed to silence her, supposed to interrupt her plans. That girl should not have to feel this way. Perhaps, members of the Youth Parliament, you might know someone like that. Perhaps you do know her. Perhaps someone does come to mind. That girl is standing in front of you right now. That girl is this girl. That girl, members of the Youth Parliament, is me. Is it because of my race? Is it because of my religion? Is it because of my gender? Is it because of my age? Is it because of my name? I wouldn't want anyone else to go through the same things that I have been through. We need to put this motion forward. We need to put emotions over notions. We need to put facts over fiction. We need to put this motion forward. We need to put this motion forward.
My friends, hate crime is on the rise. On the rise in several communities and across the board. In a current political climate that has been forged by a referendum fought on over-exaggerated issues around immigration, it is no wonder that our racial hate crime statistics have soared. How can we, as respectable members of this Youth Parliament, sit back and allow for racially offensive slurs and racially motivated attacks to just happen? Equally, despite progress, members of our LGBTQ communities still have to face discrimination on a daily basis, in particular on social media platforms. This is the third time that this motion has featured in a House of Commons debate as a result of the Make Your Mark ballot. It is something that we clearly, as the UK Youth Parliament, need to address. We are elected to voice the concerns of our constituents, and 141,974 of our constituents nationally have asked us to address this issue. It is not simply the enactment of a campaign to stop the rise in hate crime. It is a campaign to stamp it out altogether. 170,000 hate crimes go unreported in the UK every year, and hate crimes in England and Wales have doubled in the past 5 years. But we can make a difference. Surely, that's what we're elected to do. That is why we are sat in this chamber today, to make a difference. And what better motion to support in order to make a difference? Whether these hate crimes are racially motivated, or due to someone's sexuality, or their religion, or even down to their interests and hobbies. They're wrong. There is no other word for it than abhorrently wrong. Let's support this motion. Let's make a difference. Let's move forward as a united group of people looking for, working for, and finding change. Finding change for the better, for a more equal and fair society that we would all like to live in.
There exists a fine line between identity and nationalism. Identity means we certainly accept ourselves as whoever we are. Nationalism means you have to be a certain whoever to be accepted. There is a flaw in our great nation that persists even in these days of blossoming diversity. Some may argue this diversity is the very root of the problem, and that those who do not originate from society are made vulnerable and consequently exploited. Nationalism is the fuel behind this fire, which generates a bubble of hate and tunnel vision, where we do not speak for the hate, but the hate speaks for us. Although the problem manifests itself in everyday people, the real smoking gun for hate crime is the media. It has the power to destroy reputations and create damaging stereotypes that manipulate the view of its audiences, who blatantly biases the problems we face, the media, who uses scapegoats for the terrible actions of others, the media. The epidemic of knife crime killing our nation, blamed on young black males, the horrific reign of terrorism attributed entirely to Islam, the gender pay gap, who is it blamed on? Women. And what does this lead to? Hate crime. We have may lost some battles in our society, but if we stand against hate crime and vote for this motion and vote for the young people of the UK to have a safer future, we will not lose the war against hate crime.
Now, I will talk both personally and on behalf of my constituency about why this motion is unfortunately so prominent for so many, but not necessarily the best one to choose. Now, I plead you to make a difference, but that's all we can do. Personally, I'll give you a personal example. I sat over there in this chamber last year, and I got sent millions of pictures after, not millions, but I got sent plenty of pictures after, editing crops of my wonky eye. Now, I had the funniest comments, even I had a bit of a laugh at. But then I had the other ones, which I couldn't even, it took a while to even understand what was getting through to me. And at sometimes, yes, I burst out in tears. I never told anybody because all I could do was plead. Changing legislation on this has so many barriers in it, and we have civil servants trying to work on the aspects between freedom of speech and what is classed as hate crime, and all we can do is plead. Now, we are part of an apolitical organisation, BYC. Now, knowing this, our comments about Boris Johnson today, and even the anti-Semitism, will probably not be broadcasted. Are you aware of that? And that is the problem. We can sit here and do all the pleading, but we can never hold people to account. Understandably, we rely on their funding, so we need to tackle legislation. Now, talking on behalf of my constituents, something that I have seen year on year is the death of young people due to knife crime. And I'm not taking the importance away from this, and trust me, I hope I prove to all that I know. But I do know about knife crime. We have made so much progress in the last year on our campaign in knife crime. We have a Youth Select Committee report which is doing wonders, and we have young people involved on civil service levels and making the difference in improving funding. See, we can do that, we can change legislation, but can we change attitudes? No. So any comments about letterbox, we can only plea and choose our vote not to. But for now, I ask that we pick a sensible motion and we go properly, saving lives. In the word of Atiyan last year, never before has so many lives been lost because of the indecision of so few.
I support this motion totally because I have been discriminated because of my race, my gender, and my ethnicity from the age of 9 years old in primary school, which is disgusting, but it still happens today. I am sure that many other NYPs around the room can agree with me and can relate to what I've been through. Like, if it's not for race or whatever, like anything else, you can relate to it in some other way. To be targeted for a characteristic which you could not change and which you should never have to change is disgusting and unacceptable. With an 11% increase of reported cases, I believe that it is imperative that we make sure that children our age and older and younger, whoever you are educated on how to report hate crime. That we are shown that we are accepted. Yes, I may be different, but I am here and I'm here to stay. We are ensuring that perpetrators are exposed. We are ensuring that we provide some sort of closure for victims. Please, if you agree with me right now, if you believe that I should be accepted, if you believe you all should be accepted, please support this motion right now, because hate crime has no place in my society, our society, or anyone's society.
We've heard from the different stories, the moving stories, the abundance of anecdotes and statistics, and all it's done is confirmed that hate crime is abhorrently wrong and has no place in our society. But Mr. Speaker, to tackle this, surely shouldn't we look at more than just a symbolic stand? We've heard these stories, they're horrible, but we have to look at hate crime in terms of education. And I think this point was raised very well by the opposition of the motion. Hate crime happens partly because people are not educated enough, and they're facing hardships in their lives, and they turn to hate crime as a means to find scapegoats for their problems, and that is wrong. But we must look at education. If we educate people and create more better-rounded citizens, better educated citizens, then we become more tolerant, more diverse. We must look at education in terms of tackling hate crime, and therefore, if that happens, when our future generations come to this house and future youth MPs come to this house, we'll have less stories and less statistics. Thank you.
After a very inspiring debate, I would just like to conclude the main points which will concisely sum up what we deem to be most important. But first, let's just revise what hate crime actually is. A crime that a person or victim perceives as aggravated by hostility or prejudice towards another person's identity. Hate crime has destroyed people's identity, their culture, their lives. This type of crime targets the most personal aspects of an individual. It completely destroys the ethos of diversity and equality, which is so important in our British culture that our society has thoroughly embraced. To respect this beautiful ethos, we have to tackle hate crime. Hate crime that was racially and religiously aggravated peaked after the EU referendum and started to increase even more just after the Manchester Arena attack. Just over 3,000 hate crime incidences that were racially and religiously aggravated were reported, rose dramatically to 6,000 by the time after the attack. Due to a small group of impulsive individuals, others have to suffer just because of their traits. This should not be the case in any situation. Do you really think that anyone in Britain should have to suffer such violent prejudice? Hate crime stems from the lack of education. The lack of awareness has led people to believe that hate crime is okay and is acceptable. Therefore, we should tackle the root problem, the education. Respecting people's identity and culture should be embedded throughout curriculum for life across all schools. Education is a right in the UK, so let's make sure that core aspects of society are also taught. The police are currently working incredibly hard to stop and tackle hate crime. Organisations such as Stop Hate Crime have risen to the surface, and the mass movement has led to increasing amounts of awareness. Hate crime stems from the lack of education. The lack of awareness has led people to believe that hate crime is okay and is acceptable. Therefore, we should tackle the root problem, the education.